Thank you. My name is Julia Chipumuro. I'm the academic dean of the programs that we offer here in Port Alfred. Dr. O, we don't have schools anymore in Stenden. We only have programs. So we've got the hospitality management program, we've got the disaster management program, we've got the bridging course. It's a program on its own, and I'm the academic dean. For those who attended the gala dinner last night, I think you saw our executive dean, Dr. Jensen. He is my boss, and he is the executive dean, and I am the academic dean. So today I'm going to be talking to you about emotional intelligence in disaster management. But because I'm the academic dean here, I have a responsibility as well for this institution. And I was thinking about our colleagues online the whole week they've been here with us, and maybe they don't know where we are. So I have got a few pictures for them to see exactly where we are. We are here in Africa, and we are at the bottom where you see that dot coming up. That's exactly where we are at the coast. And if I talk about the campus, this is Port Alfred. And this is exactly where we are in terms of the campus. So when we talk of Stenden, South Africa, in my responsibility, I want everyone to know in the room that I'm not a disaster management specialist. So in case you're looking for a specialist in disaster management, I'm not. I am a management scientist. I am a leadership and emotional intelligence researcher. So what I'm going to talk to you about relates to my field of research. Basically, before I start talking about what I want to talk about in disaster management, I want you to realize that as a management scientist, when I studied for my PhD with Rhodes University, the one requirement was that for me to be able to study emotional intelligence, I had to be accredited. So I had to go through emotional intelligence training to get accredited so that I can also assess emotional intelligence. So I'm an emotional intelligence accredited assessor. I'm also a leadership trainer. I've also been trained for that. I've been certified in the Netherlands. So I can also talk about personal leadership, value-driven leadership, and so many other leadership models. In terms of my responsibility, as you've heard, I am responsible for all the programs that we offer, and disaster management is one of them. And if I'll talk about our institution, please just forgive me because unfortunately I can't help it. As an institution, we are not just an institution like any other university that you know. That's why you see that we are very small and our numbers are very low. We are very unique in that our educational methodologies are different from the educational methodologies in other universities. We use a lot of social constructivism, and we bring our students into smaller classrooms where we speak to them not just as a number, but as individuals. So we are a premier provider of higher education. I'm saying this because it's critical that everyone who is working with us understands who we are. We are looking for partners in the field of disaster management, but we're not looking for everyone. We are looking for people who are serious about what they do. We are looking for people who are looking for premier providers in higher education so that we can collaborate and work together. So today I want to, sorry. Okay. So today I'm talking to you as an emotional intelligence accredited assessor, and I'm looking at emotional intelligence and the difference it could make in disaster management. I believe we've heard so many stories about disaster management the whole week. We have seen pictures, we have heard stories, we've seen floods, we have heard, for example, Eric talked with passion about fire in the Northwest. We've heard so many stories about disasters that are happening all over the world. We have also seen quite a number of, headlines in news of what's happening with regards to disaster management.
Can I please ask our online participants to just mute themselves?
Yes.
Can you please mute yourself?
Thank you. So today I'm looking at emotional intelligence, and obviously after having adopted the disaster management program last year, I'm also looking at aligning what is happening in that program with my areas of interest. And I'm specifically looking at what happens during disasters, whether we talk of disasters that are man-made or, natural disasters. And I'm looking at the affected individuals and those who are supposed to give them help. And I'm saying, would not emotional intelligence really bring a difference in terms of how communication can be done, how decision-making can be done, and how resilient they can be in that kind of situation? So when we talk of the way we train our students, I've indicated that we are a premier provider. So we try to make sure that when we release our students, they are ready for the industry. And when they go out there, I think you've heard everyone talking about Emma Chapman. She is a graduate of Stenden, and those are the kind of graduates that we produce. But in as much as we talk about these students and what we're trying to do to make sure they've got the 21st century skills, I also want us to think about who we are as disaster practitioners. Even as we sit in this room, I would want you to think about the emotions that you're having at the moment. Because obviously when we were seeing pictures, we all thought about a lot of things, right? You see people burning, you see, people drowning. We have seen ugly pictures of people dying, trying to cross rivers and things like that. And obviously all those things kind of brought a lot of emotions in us as we were sitting in this room. You agree with me? Yeah. You can then imagine for the people that are going out there to work with, people who have gone through disasters, to what extent do you think emotional intelligence could help them cope with the situation? So that's what I'm going to be talking about. And this is how we train our students, just a picture to show you how you train our students. So my talk is going to start with intelligence in general. I think we've all heard about people talking about intelligence in life, right? And we know that when we talk about intelligence, we are talking of that ability to acquire and apply knowledge and skills. In the past, people used to talk about intelligence from an IQ perspective. And I know whenever you would talk about an education system in any country, you would see that people measure to what extent can you remember, can you comprehend, can you analyze, those kind of things. And I think if you would also remember, I remember people that I went to school with. And I also remember some of them who really had answers on their fingertips, people who knew exactly how to answer questions. If they would be asked a mathematical question, they've answers. I know those people. But if I look back to where they are now in comparison to some people that I know were writing corrections all the time, I see a huge difference. And I see those people who were writing corrections, driving the world. And I say, what happened to those who had really high levels of IQ? And the reality of the matter is that's where the world is missing it. Because we're designing education system based on our IQ. We're designing systems that kind of support to say, for you to be successful in life, you need to have a high level of IQ. And we forget that when we talk of how we respond to situations, it's not just about your IQ. There is a lot more that happens in the thinking process. So when I talk of emotional intelligence, I'm talking about that measure of your ability to understand and manage emotions. And when we talk of IQ, we're talking of the measure of your ability to solve problems and think logically. So obviously people would say, which one is better than the other? Are they at the same level? And that graph kind of says, I think at the end of this presentation, you can answer that question for yourself to say, what do you think? So when we talk of emotional intelligence versus IQ, I'm just putting this slide just so that at least I kind of go together with you. IQ, we're talking of your concentration, your comprehension, analytical skills, and things like that. Whereas with emotional intelligence, at times measured as emotional quotient, we are talking of your self-awareness, your self-regulation, your empathy, social skills, perseverance, relationship management, and so forth. If we talk of the neurological, the neurology of emotional intelligence. So when something happens to you, or when something happens, I don't have to move away from the left, I almost got tempted. So when something happens, when a stimulus comes to you, okay, before you respond to the stimulus, I normally say to students, between the stimulus and the response, there is a space in between where you are allowed to think about how you're going to respond to the stimulus, right? Mm-hmm. And if you think about the processing of information actually in the brain, what actually happens is when something happens, when stimulus happens, okay, that information is carried into your brain. But in the brain, we have the thing that I have at the bottom there called the amygdala, I call it amygdala, that at times that regulates your emotions. So what happens is, if you don't give yourself enough space between the stimulus and the response, what happens is you have what we call an amygdala hijack. An amygdala hijack is basically where you respond based on your emotions or your feelings. And you can imagine how disastrous that can be if you would just respond to anything according to your emotions. And maybe if I could take you to some organization that I worked for, I hope my time will allow me to do that. But I worked for an organization, and after 2 weeks, I said, what on earth is going on here? And that one afternoon on Friday, I sat and I said, I think I need to write an email to my boss to let them know exactly how I feel. So I said, 4-page document. expressing all my emotions exactly the way I felt. And then at the end, I said, this is not gonna work. I don't need to send this email. And unfortunately, because of technology, that moment when I wanted to click save, I clicked send, and the email went. And you can imagine what happened in that situation. And just thank God. The person on the other hand was at a high level of emotional intelligence. And he said to me, I can see that you can't get into the weekend like this. Can we sit and talk about it? And we had an opportunity to sit and talk about things. But we have so many situations where something horrible has happened. A disaster has happened. To what extent can we say we always give ourselves enough time to process what has happened before we use our emotions to respond to the situation? So when you talk of the emotional intelligence concept as a concept, it is a concept that developed from as early as 1920, when people like Thorndike were talking about not just thinking about IQ, but also thinking about your social intelligence. And you can see that as we go, like in the 1940s already, we had others who said, no, we must not just talk about social intelligence and IQ, we should also talk about non-intellectual facts. And you can see the continuum goes on, but around the 1990s, then we had people who then said, can we not talk about what we are kind of categorizing as non-intellectual factors or social intelligence as emotional intelligence? So in the 1990s, emotional intelligence as a concept was popularized. So you find people like your son of Mayor, your Baron, Gary Norton, maybe from Rhodes University, you might know him, and Gorman. They started talking about emotional intelligence as a concept. But what you also see in literature, if you would read a little bit more about emotional intelligence, you will see that even though they were all kind of talking about more or less the same thing, they all talked about that same thing from different angles. So others talked about it as a trait or as traits and characteristics that are different from IQ. Others talked about it as an ability or an ability to do something that's different from what you would do if you consider what you do with your IQ. Others, like Gorman, talked about it as a competency that you need in the workplace so that you can be successful or more successful than others. So when you talk about emotional intelligence, if I use all the models of emotional intelligence to define what it is, we say emotional intelligence is about your understanding of emotions. It is about appraisal and expression of emotions. It's about assimilation of emotions into thought processes, so that when you make decisions, you are making decisions based on that information, and it is about the regulation and management of those emotions. I've got one definition that I've given here, I think you can see, where I say it is the ability to monitor one's own emotions and others' emotions, to discriminate among them, and to use the information to guide one's thinking and actions. Okay, that's what emotional intelligence is. In other words, we're saying you have emotions on one hand, and you use that emotion, that information about emotions to think about things, and then we see that exhibited in your behavior. You understand? So why should disaster management role players know about emotional intelligence? And I've got a picture of a phone there to say you really need to listen to this because it's critical. Because when you talk of emotional intelligence, we say 70% of reasons why disaster management relief missions fail is related to emotional intelligence. Unfortunately, that's what research says. And if you talk about that 75%, we're talking of varied reasons, like, for example, lack of the presence of unpleasant interactions or lack of human connection in missions. We're talking about poor handling of communication concerns, disregard for local people. I think we've heard all those stories in the week, right? And all that can be related to emotional intelligence. And I want you to hear me even more. Because research also says that 75% of reasons careers derail are emotional intelligence related. We are training students, and I can imagine we take them to the sea and we work with NSRI, we work with so many other, partners in the field of disaster management. But I can imagine when I sleep at home and I say to myself, if one of my students would go to Syria, are they going to survive it? Are they not going to come back home and say, I'm not cut for this? So the reason why at times careers derail is related to emotional intelligence. So for example, your unsatisfactory team leadership during challenging times, you go there into Syria and someone is leading you, they have no idea what emotional intelligence is. And unfortunately, the problem with emotions is that they are contagious. If somebody is moody, you come in and you are in high spirits and you You interact with this individual, you catch the emotion. And without you knowing, your whole day becomes miserable. So there is so much more, so many other reasons as to why we really need to think about emotional intelligence in disaster management. Government argues that emotional intelligence predicts 90% of success, not just in missions, but in any situation in your life. It can be your personal life, it can be your academics, it can be your workplace. He says it determines 90% of success. Should we not really emphasize on that then if it determines 90% of success? And he even goes on to say, I looked at the Hay Group. The Hay Group as a group said emotional intelligence is greater than your IQ, your experience, your talent, all that put together multiplied by 2, your emotional intelligence is higher. And I think the example that I gave earlier where I said I have friends that I know had answers on their fingertips when I was in high school. And when I look at where they are in life, I only see those who were writing corrections, driving the world. That for me explains why. Because their IQ was quite high, but dealing with situations as they arise and dealing with emotions has not been easy for them. And research says that for scientists and engineers, analytical thinking ranks 3rd, which means your emotional intelligence is number 1 and analytical skills is only number 3. And even more important, 50% of time that's wasted in any mission or any disaster situation is due to lack of trust. I went to a trust conference with my executive dean, and when we were there, the gentleman from the Franklin Covey organization in the USA who came to present to us, he said to us, trust is like a boomerang. What you give is what you get. I said, huh? I didn't realize that for people to really trust you, you need to give them that trust. If you don't trust someone, they won't trust you back. And all that is related to emotional intelligence. Okay. So you can understand why it's critical that we need to start thinking about these 21st century skills, especially emotional intelligence, and how it relates to disaster management. So when you talk of emotional intelligence, I've told you that there are quite a number of models in emotional intelligence. I specifically work with the Gorman model. Why? Because it's applicable to the work situation. And Gorman says when we talk of emotional intelligence, we talk of 4 clusters. You talk of your self-awareness, you talk of your self-management, you talk of your social awareness, and we talk of relationship management. And even if we would test, unfortunately, I don't have enough time, but if I would ask you to say how many of us sitting here really know themselves? If we say self-awareness, when last did you conduct a SWOT analysis of yourself to say, these are my strengths, these are my weaknesses, these are my challenges, these are my opportunities? Maybe just a few of us maybe have had an opportunity to do that. I have students who dream to become directors one day. And then I say, close your eyes and tell me how you can become a director. And then you realize that the person has not really gone through that process of really saying, who am I? Unpacking to understand who you are. So when we say self-awareness, when we say you need to know yourself, you need to know when you are angry and say, I'm angry at the moment. I'm not going to make this decision because I'm angry. And I think we all know situations where people have been in situations where they were meant to make decisions. Think about what has been happening, what is happening right now in Ukraine. It's just that one moment. And everything changes immediately because a decision has been made based on a certain emotion. So some of the things that I think would be very important and is indicated in literature for disaster management is that if we would use emotional intelligence in disaster management, disaster responders and affected individuals would cope with stress, they would be able to cope with trauma, they would be able to cope with uncertainties that come with disasters. And emotional intelligence enhances team collaboration. You can only collaborate with a person that you really think you can click together. You agree with me? Imagine if you would be on a mission in a war-torn zone. You cannot trust people that you don't know. But if you get into a team where you can trust people, it becomes easier for you to collaborate with them. So emotional intelligence would help people in such situations to foster teamwork and conflict resolution during such times. And it also helps in effective communication. So when you're communicating with others, I know that when I teach students, I always say, don't just communicate with words. You should communicate with words, you should communicate with your body language, and so many other things that we use to communicate, right? And I also don't just listen with your ears, listen with your heart, and listen with your ears. I don't know if that is practical, but I also know that I've seen people where you're having a conversation with them and you realize that what they are saying is forming discord with what they are communicating with their non-verbal communication. You agree with me?
Yes.
Okay. So emotional intelligence would help with effective communication. In decision making, I cannot even overemphasize the importance of emotional intelligence in decision making. I've just talked about amygdala hijacks and how, if you are not careful, you can make decisions based on feelings and emotions. Then, in terms of community engagement, emotional intelligence would help responders build trust and rapport in those that they are assisting. I helped a lady who was doing a master's research from the Netherlands, and she was looking at humanitarian work. And the one thing that was outstanding from her findings was that in most communities where people were going to help, there was no rapport between those who were coming to help the people in the community and the community itself. And if people would have a high level of emotional intelligence, it will be easy for you to say, I know who I am, I know my emotions, and I know how to manage them and express them. But at the same time, I understand the society where I'm going. I know exactly what's going on in the society, and I know who is leading the society. And for that reason, I'm going to approach this individual for me to get the best results for this community. Then emotional intelligence also helps in terms of self-care. At times when we are in situations where we are working, at times we have a way of just neglecting ourselves. But it's critical that we should not burn out, especially when we are working in disaster management, because there is so much that happens there. A lot of trauma happens, and emotional intelligence will help you in dealing with situations and being able to take care of yourself. Adaptability, I can't even overemphasize on the importance of emotional intelligence in adapting to different situations. And when you talk of superior knowledge transfer, emotional intelligence would help you foster superior knowledge transfer in any situation. Okay. I'm specifically talking about two researches that I've carried out here in South Africa, one in Grahamstown and one which was quite an extensive research for an industry. I'm not specifying for this particular conference, but in the first research results that I am presenting, what has been disheartening for me as a researcher is that when we looked at this particular project in Grahamstown, we were looking at about 46 women who are in business, in a tourism concept. And we tried to look at why they were not as successful as the government expected them to be. So I said, why don't we just look at where they are in terms of emotional intelligence? And what was disheartening was that you can see of all the 4 clusters of emotional intelligence, from your self-awareness, your social awareness, self-management, and relationship management, all of them indicated that majority of them, they were all below par. Disheartening, isn't it? So how can you expect people to be successful in situations if they are not emotionally strong? So this is just an example. I also have another example of the extensive research that I was talking about, where I had about 55 participants in a specific industry. This is not disaster management, by the way. I'm just giving you an example of what's happening with research that I'm carrying out in relating to emotional intelligence. And with this particular research, what I found out, if you would just look at the specific clusters, you will see that in terms of emotional intelligence, this is the level of emotional intelligence of the leaders of that industry as they rated themselves to say, this is my level of self-awareness. And this is how the followers rated their leaders. This is the level of self-awareness of the followers of the leaders. And this is the hate group norm. What that basically says is the hate group norm, as you can see, is higher than all the other levels that we have, which basically means the level of self-awareness in that whole industry is below par. Okay? If you look at self-management, you can also see the same trend. That is the hate group norm. And this is what the leaders said about themselves. This is what the followers said about their leaders. And this is what the followers said about themselves, below par, the whole industry. Okay. If we look at social awareness, you can see the same trend. In this particular case, you can also see that the leaders kind of said, I think I'm quite good. But if you look at what their followers said about them in comparison to what they said about themselves, you can see the difference. And you can also see that the head group norm is also a little bit higher there. The same goes for relationship management, where the leader said our relationship management level is quite high, but everyone else saying we think it's a little bit lower, and the followers also having a lower level of relationship management. So what does this say to us as practitioners, as disaster management practitioners? I listened to Professor Namu when he was talking on Monday, and his emphasis on leadership. And he said, when you talk of leadership, we must not talk about leadership in terms of, position leadership. We must talk about leadership in terms of who we are as individuals and how we can make a difference in any community, which basically means that anyone can be a leader in any situation when you choose to become that leader. And when you look at emotional intelligence and leadership literature, current trends seem to place a strong emphasis on the importance of emotional intelligence, especially for the leaders in achieving organizational goals. So if you're going to be achieving on any mission that you're going to be assigned to, or anything that you embark on, the argument here based on literature is that you need to have a very high level of emotional intelligence for you to become that leader that you want to be. So if you're going to be going into the community, you also need to have a high level of emotional intelligence. How much time do I have left?
If you take the last part, then you can't just question.
Okay. So in other words, based on what I said in the previous slide, you can see that we're saying, according to government's claim, that extremely successful individuals, leaders in any situation, have got a high level of emotional intelligence, and they exhibit a high level of positive energy. You understand positive energy, right? Mm-hmm. If somebody comes in, and I remember I was chatting to my brother at the back from Unizulu yesterday evening, and he was saying to me, when you get into a room and someone is smiling, there is a chance that you catch that emotion, and you can start a conversation from that, easily from that. You agree with me? So when you have that positive energy in you, it becomes easier for anyone working with you to be able to listen to you, to follow your instructions, and be able to achieve results with you. In other words, your foremost job as a leader, if you choose to become a leader in any situation, in any community, is to take charge of your own energy. Because you can't help someone to use their own energy when you cannot use your own energy. It's like what we do with investment. I can't invest with somebody who doesn't know how to keep their own money. You agree with me? I need to know that you can keep your own money for me to be able to invest with you. So you need to, if your foremost job as a leader is to take charge of your own energy and then help orchestrate the energy of those around you. I'm not going to talk about the last part, but these are some of the things that I think emotional intelligence would help you. Your performance would be higher. Your physical health will improve because you understand yourself and say, I don't think I'm fit anymore. I need to do something about this. Self-awareness. It will also improve your mental health. It will also improve your relationships with people all over, wherever you find yourself in. And your social intelligence will also improve if you have emotional intelligence. I have also done a research with my student, Criselda Solomon. Thank you very much. We have also measured the emotional intelligence of our students who are doing disaster management at the current moment. Unfortunately, I'm not going to present the result here. I need to present the results at the DEMISA conference. I think Mr. Becker has really motivated me, so I'm going to present the results of that research that I've done at the DEMISA conference. But where are we as practitioners? Where are we as aspiring, disaster managers in terms of emotional intelligence? Thank you.
I will share my experience towards the role of awareness and training, which I have experienced as an engineer in the field, as a government servant. So to start with, आगे बढ़ जाओ, तो इस पर आ जाओ, इसी पर आ जाओ, भाई पर कब आए, भाई पर होंगे तब.
Can you please then move to the next slide? We can see the first slide.
Okay, thank you. So is my slides are visible?
Yes, we are able to see your slides. We are able to see.
Yes. Are you in position to share my screen? Yes.
Yes, we can see clearly. We can see your slides.
Okay, thank you. So the Sunday Framework Conference has already fixed the targets and the goals. As per that, objective is for the safe human habitats. The mid-term peer review has found that 80% increase in the number of peoples affected by disasters after 2015. This situation calls for grassroots mass awareness and training to be made a slogan. Why I said slogan? Because the task is very big. Task is very big in front of all the stakeholders globally. Therefore, the awareness and the training aspects have got to be brought to the grassroots levels. The background is the understanding of disaster and risk reduction strategies, their resilience, capacity of building for disaster preparedness, response, and how to build back better. These are the aspects we are to be brought into the mindset of the mass people for making them capable to handle these disasters. Awareness training plays major roles in holistic management. Natural disaster occurs both in developing and developed countries, but due to the social and economic conditions, the low level of awareness and training, inadequate preparedness, response resource developing countries suffer more. So the developing countries have to be especially very careful in propagating the awareness and has to make special pursuance for the accompanying the awareness. Now, as regards vulnerability of India, India is the 7th largest largest landmass in the world. It is vulnerable to earthquakes, floods, droughts, cyclones, and landslides. About 60% of the landmass is prone to earthquake, nearly 40 million hectares to flood, and 8% of total land area to cyclone, and 68% of land is prone to drought. India disaster occurs in much bigger scale due to the climatic conditions, glaciers in the Himalayan range, and many rivers coming from the high altitude. Cloud bursts are also as well aiding the worsening situation. We have learned lessons from the past disasters. It is learned from the past disaster earthquakes in Japan, Indonesia, India, Haiti, Chile, Nepal, New Zealand, and Turkey, etc., of magnitude ranging from 9.5 to 6.4, that more the country is prepared, the less will be devastation. The more the country is prepared, the less will be damaged, the less will be the loss of life. The Chile earthquake 1960 of 9.5 has taught lessons to Chile, and the Chile country developed seismic codes and ensured their compliance. The earthquake in Chile, which came in February 2010 of magnitude 8.8, has shown this result, that the infrastructures and the buildings have suffered less, and their action for developing seismic codes and ensuring their compliance has paid. Similarly, the earthquake came of magnitude 7 on 12 January 2010 to Haiti, and it caused loss of lives, a huge loss of lives. It is estimated that the Chile earthquake in 2010 was 500% more powerful than to Haiti earthquake, but Chile suffered less compared to Haiti. This was because of the preparedness of Chile as regards the structural measures to face the earthquake. New Zealand have also learned from their earthquake in 1885 of magnitude 8.2 and have developed effective system of awareness and training, including systematic assessment of buildings. Consequently, in 2016, when the earthquake came of 7.8 in New Zealand, good results have been observed. Now, I am trying to discuss the cyclones, coastal cyclones that has come in India, and especially in the Odisha coast in 1942, 1969, 1971, and 1977, and super cyclone in 1999. These cyclones have caused huge loss of lives. India has taken measures to mitigate the cyclones, and positive results found in cyclone in 2013, 2014, 2018, and 2019. Recent Biparjoy severe cyclone storm with high speed of wind in the western coast of India in June 2030 has affected many districts of Gujarat. But since the India was prepared and the Gujarat was prepared for this, and sufficient awareness was there has been very nominal losses of life. Now, I will try to just discuss a strategy to improve the campaign and awareness. The first thing I will say that the disaster management should be brought into the systematized education. It should be brought into the school curriculum. It should be brought in the curriculum of engineering college and architecture schools and college, and at the higher research studies in the engineering college or other research centers. Awareness could improve a lot if it is basically done at these stages. Awareness of specific provisions of safe construction, seismic codes and building codes, practicing standards of different countries, including India, have been up-to-dated time to time based on the learnings from the past earthquakes. And therefore, the awareness regarding these codal provisions and the safe construction should be given to all the stakeholders, including engineers and architects and the construction workers. This awareness should also include the requirements of retrofitting to avoid their damage and collapse in the future. Because the buildings need retrofitting at a very, very fast speed and in very good number. Awareness through studies of failure structure. This I will especially try to bring into the mindset of all awareness that the structures have fails because of many things. Early warning dismissal systems should be brought into the awareness aspect of this. Number of buildings infrastructures have failed and collapsed due to the different disasters, due to the faulty design and inferior construction. High level of inferior awareness among all stakeholders should be enforced, and compliance of seismic provisions is more needed. Now, how to enhance the awareness against the earthquake? The seismic zone vulnerability and their vulnerability, site-related importance of the area, chances of liquefations, land use in area should be explained to all the persons of the prone area. Non-engineering buildings which are in many numbers should be and are there, and the new buildings should be constructed as per IS 19,005, IS 138228, IS 132827, IS 13,935. In hilly region, construction of new buildings and retrofittings need special precautions. Awareness is required in respect of non-structural elements, which is often not designed and integrated with structural members and suffers during the earthquake. This I will try to bring especially in the mind of all stakeholders and the builders. Awareness in the regards of use of base solution system will help in constructing more especially safe buildings. Awareness regards of earthquake precautions and their interpretations in case of post-earthquake strikes of earthquake or tsunami, it will help also in mitigation. So, now I will discuss how to enhance awareness against the landslide and cyclones. Landslides, often the landslides are occurring in hilly regions of India. Suitability of piece of land on which the construction are to be done with respect to their level, slopes, sliding of site, landsliding, possibility, route of natural water flow, etc. should be well examined before the constructions are done. Cyclones in coastal areas, India, in the world, cyclones are playing very havoc. Coordination among the people in regard to the early warning system, evacuation to safe shelters, health work workers, youth and volunteers, NGO, administrative rings, and rapid action force, etc., will help a lot. Newspapers, media, TV, radio, mobile networks, local announcement systems, etc., informing minute-to-minute actions to be taken are essential. Awareness, confidence imparted to the mass through structural measures. The early warning system, multi-purpose good, cyclone and flood centers, constructions of Pakka houses, structural measures as such cyclone resistance building, shelters, repair of retrofitting of lifetime structures are very essential for providing confidence to the mass through structural measures. The role of e-media and news agency are very crucial in giving the real-time story and pictures after the cyclone reset. These are the things with which we can improve awareness against the landslide and cyclones. And now I will discuss how to enhance the awareness against drought and unsafe construction. India has a huge area susceptible to disasters of drought and affect mass population. The country is creating structural infrastructures like barrages, dams, interlinking of rivers, watersheds, laying pipes, channels to utilize excess flood waters and diverting water to the scarce area during the time of need. In India, level of awareness on advance of agro-based technology is still to improve. Awareness companies helping to farmers exploring alternative crops, adoption of comprehensive technology, best early warning system, and timely seasonal forecast system, conservation of water, rain harvesting, augmentation of groundwater level, discharge and drip and sprinkle system of irrigation. These measures can improve a lot in meeting the in facing challenges of droughts and mitigating the drought as a disaster. Now, there are some failures which is also to be discussed due to the faults of design and unsafe construction. Recently, repaired and reopened Morbi Bridge in Gujarat collapsed. This is all because of faults in construction as well in the faults of design. In Bihar, at least 10 bridges, small or big size, recently constructed or under construction, have collapsed or failed. Failure of old Mahatma Gandhi Setu in Ganga River at Patna after a short span of time, and the reasons attributed to the shortcomings of designs, etc. Entire superstructure of the old bridges has been changed recently. Therefore, there should be proper awareness against the proper design, against the use of faulty designs and unsafe construction. With all stakeholders should keep in mind that proper designs are used and proper constructions are adopted. Now, I will just discuss the certain training structural measures for structural measures of mitigation against natural hazards. Capacity building through training of safe construction. Training of all stakeholders plays very important role in building capacity to understand the aspects of technology, methodology, provision of seismic codes, standards and aspects of involved in planning, analysis and design of drawings. Basic training of to masons and skilled workers engaged in construction of buildings and infrastructure is grassroots strategy. I will like to again stress that the safe construction are mostly depend upon the construction workers as well. Therefore, this is very important to train the construction workers. Contribution of different organizations in India are very important. BMPTC, National IIT Kanpur, CBRI, Roorkee, NIDM New Delhi, NDMA New Delhi, and other organizations has contributed a lot in spreading the awareness towards imparting training for safe construction. Now, my author's association in training and awareness related activity. Author has been associated with the trainings of engineers and architects mason in Bihar for last a few years. In his organization, he had actively associated with more than 20 years with training of working engineers and architects and refresher training time to time on earthquake-resistant safe construction. Author participated or gave presentation in several awareness and training programs, workshop and conferences organized by Bihar State Disaster Management Authority Patna on subjects related to disaster risk reduction. He also delivered lectures on
Left. You have 2
different
minutes.
topics. Okay, I will try to please
Minutes.
safe construction, others organized by the BMPTC. So online monitoring system also pays a lot. We have you have implemented this in our organization. This helps in guiding the engineers of the site defaults, the site problems, and of the training to them to further improve. Peer review of design and drawings of our projects are again also very much required against the faulty designs to safeguard our future structures. Peer review design is well required before the projects are taken up. So Bihar is prone to multi-hazard. Just a case study I will discuss Bihar. Bihar is very prone to the floods, to seismic map of to earthquakes, and wind, high wind also. North Bihar is in seismic zone 4 and 5, susceptible to high wind, and the property of soil is also very poor, and it is susceptible to flood also. The vulnerability increases due to the river flowing from Himalaya range, which are most of the times they are furious. Types of houses and class of people and one of their difficulty. Since there are more of poor people in this area, and they are in the mud built houses or unburned built houses, so they have got their houses very vulnerable to flood, wind, and earthquake as well. Rich people have burn built houses. They are also vulnerable to earthquake and moderate level of wind and high level of floods. So the Kusha bridge was there in the Kosi River in 2008. This has paid very havoc. Against this one, the state government has launched certain mitigation strategy. Mitigation strategy were adopted to recover the devastating impacts of flood after the 2000. Okay, so reconstruction and new constructions were done. So this has also paid lot now, and the state is improving and the area is improving. Now, in August 98 earthquake, which we faced, many buildings which were well constructed in compliance of the code, they have behaved well, and those buildings who were not in compliance with the code, they have suffered. So what is my recommendation?
Unfortunately, you've run a bit over time with your presentation.
Just time closing. So disaster is very challenging for all the stakeholders of the world. We must try to understand the role of awareness and training. So the more the countries are aware, trained and prepared technologically resourced, ready to respond with tools, we can be the less will be devastation due to the natural disaster. And my conclusion is again the same, that our capacity we must improve and make our cities resilient. And the lessons learned from earthquake is from the past disasters should be taken into mind, and we must be well prepared against them. The climate change is also to be given proper value, and the impact should be understood. Thanks you all.
We are two people who are presenting this paper. First, I'll be talking to you from Sydney, and followed by my professor, my guru, Professor Vinod Menon. He is an expert and authority in the subject. So let me start. See, disaster resilient future ready communities, a framework. We are dissecting this title for the convenience of the audience. Disaster resilience, future ready communities, and a framework which is from perspective of practitioners. Now, we are talking about deficit. What is the deficit in disaster resiliency? And if you go through the definition of European Union, the definition of resiliency is considered in terms of people, planet, and prosperity. But in a recently concluded G20 meeting in New Delhi at on 10th of September, peace word is added to that. Okay. Now coming on to community, which is the core subject, core part of this subject. What are the challenges of making it future ready? Number one, community itself is very complex, and I mean, when we talk of 1 minute, sir. Okay, it is more complex than normally perceived or talked. What is community? Communities are diverse and have clashing interests or goals which are not matching. Global migration, because of wars, floods, and many reasons, has led to micro communities, and there are many approaches being followed to for the community development. It might be need based, like the subject we are talking, future ready for disaster recovery. It's a need based problem solving. One particular problem has come, one disaster has come, we are solving that. Participation based, by all for all. Asset based, when we are talking of housing, roads, or any other things. And welfare based, disaster has upset the movement of everybody. So these are the approaches. But if we look into the composition of community, there might be people who are reluctant to all these happenings. All these developments. There are some people who are very progressive. Some people are technical and managerial, so they might help. And some people are activists. So when we, why it is okay. Now, disaster resilience, technology, infrastructure, and social system. These are the two major components. Disasters so far have received higher focus towards technological aspects, while correcting it, T has been dropped. Even small scale disasters create large scale human problems. Large scale disasters, in any case, have human problem and interplay of multiple systems, electricity, water, healthcare, everything. Now, community resilience, when it is to be seen from the angle of crisis management organization, they have to look what type of population and demography they are handling, what is the environment and ecosystem they are going to handle. Are they handling the organized, through organized government services, physical infrastructure, lifestyle? So these things are, in short, have been given a name called peoples, which includes social and cultural capital. Now, I'm sitting in Australia, and I'm seeing a lot of working is being done proactively in Australia. And one is, Red Cross has taken up, because it has multiple community, cultural communities, all with different people have come from different. And the latest census says 33% are English and 30% approximately are Australians. All sorts of people are there. So with all that changes, the workers are also to be So see, the people, the volunteers are more diverse. They are carrying more diverse workforce so that they are able to connect the people. Now, if we talk of this, one more thing has happened. 1 minute, it has gone. Okay. Only day before, though I am working for Red Cross, only day before I received a postcard in my dock, which says, "Are you disaster ready?" And there are many questions on the other side. Are you known to your neighbors and things like that? Have your kit been ready? So this is ongoing process over here. Now everybody is talking that disasters are on increase, and continent-wise also they're increased. But Americas, whether it is North America or Latin America, 118 happened in 2022. Asia has, faced 137. That was in 22. And when we talk of 2023, in fact, till day before, I counted 29 have already happened. More have happened in America. But in the last 3-4 days, again, 3 more disasters have happened. So that means it has become a regular, process. And the major part is storms, followed by floods, whether we call earthquake to take a higher number or drought to be a higher number, is debatable. But our people who are working on statistics, they calculate based on various data given to them that 560 disasters per year are going to happen by 2030, and 100.4 million, a million is messed up, more people will be in poverty trap. Now, when we talk of temperature, we are all talking of temperature is going high to temperature. But if we see total lifespan of 105 years and dissect it into 15-year span, that means there are 7 cohorts, generation cohorts are existing, and they are going to face higher and higher temperatures, right? The people who are born in 2005, they will be 75 years by 2080. So that's why their colors have been shown darker. And what happened? 6 young kids have joined hands in Europe, and they are going to the court for injustice being done to them, and against 32 countries. Now, we have done a lot of work, integrated research management, disaster risk reduction, climate change adaptation, emergency medical response, and then we keep on, making our teams ready. Emergency preparedness is okay. First few days we can handle it, but community has to be resilient. And with the frequent high impact disaster, importance has become higher. Now, when you talk of making the community, yes, you will make somebody a leader, and here this leader is trying to say, okay, I'll keep the power for some more time. So that is what is to be seen. Teams have to start initiating process orientation and share the knowledge, whatever they have learned or whatever they are learning during these 3-4 days conference of TIEMS. So we have to share all this information with our people. That means we have to understand each community, we have to establish their requirement, we have to plan, we have to implement, and we have to review and evaluate where we are going, right? Now, process proposed is that our community should be able to handle the resilience themselves instead of waiting for government to act on that. And successful communities are those who understand the role of contribution of each and every member. And it is the collective energy of the community that will take us further on this. Now, whether the disaster is soft, high intensity, higher stress, or it is happening for a longer period of time, also depends upon what is the resilience gradient built into individuals, community or society. It depends on each country also how much money they are spending on this. Now, like I am talking about in Sydney, the process is going on. But if tomorrow, God forbid, if tomorrow the disaster happens, the whole process will be stopped, and first action will be for early recovery, then long-term recovery will start, and then we'll restart the community development process, right? And disaster disruption stops all this ongoing process. Now, there are capacity development of the community needs all these to be taken care of, and our professor was talking, my speaker earlier to me was talking about early warning system. Yes, that is a must, and that helps us taking our new urban agenda faster, so that we can plan our training and also partnership among socio-economical sectors, so that we can plan our training, etc., planning risk hazards, etc. Now, when anything happens like this, first 3-4 days, yes, aid has started coming and everybody is happy, and that's a honeymoon period, and people are, taking hero. But slowly and slowly, the whole process will, because more and more people will be getting affected with the disaster. So the change in facial expression or emojis tells, yes, we get disillusioned, and then only after some time we get back to normal. Initial period of 4 days or 3 days or whatever, but resilience recovery may take 3 years or more. Now, as I have talked, we have talked a little bit earlier, depending on the initial condition of the economy, high resilience has been built up, but there might be a low resilient countries, there might be no resilient countries. So the gap of resiliency and time recovery will depend upon high resilience and no resilience zone. When we are talking about community resilience framework, in fact, all the factors will matter. Soft deliveries are also required. Responsible governance, quality of life, and strong economy is a must. Then comes a prepared system where community members are educated for the. Now, coming on to when we talk of a disaster, community is, waiting for social and economic resilience, right? So for that, they want technical and organization support of electrical services, water services, emergency management, and any other services, which are all interconnected. So these are all required to be done. Having brought in so many parameters on the platter, I think it is a time for me to stop for a while, and so that you can draw a curve or graph. Let me request Professor Menon to take on from here.
Thank you very much, Dr. Chawla. So actually, as Dr. Chawla has mentioned, there are lots of issues which we need to really look at in terms of seeing how communities can respond to disasters. So preparing for, responding to, and recovering from emergencies, you also feel that there is a need to really address issues related to psychosocial care and mental health, because the Australian Red Cross has prepared this report, which basically talks in terms of many levels of interventions which are required. At the bottom level, you have the advocacy for basic services. At the next level, you have to activate social networks, especially family and communities. And then you have the person-to-person support in terms of providing mental health, psychosocial support. And finally, referral services for psychiatrists and specialists who will be able to address the problems of people who are going through grief and people going through depression and even suicidal tendencies. There is a need to really look at that. So the referral services and specialist services are required. Now, looking at the principles of community development, you have opportunities to really look at the building the social capital. And we have seen that right now, when there are earthquakes happening in Morocco, and then you have the floods happening in Greece and Spain and Chile and Libya and China, you find that there is a need to really address community development and community engagement and the work of civil society organizations. So these are at different levels, and you have to really build on the social capital. Next. So we have the disaster resilience framework, which is future ready, which builds on the human-centric resilience building. And this is especially in terms of looking at developing the social capital and also fostering enabling conditions. And this has been basically coming out of the Foundation for Rural and Regional Renewal in Australia, where they have been talking in terms of a disaster resilient, future ready resilience building framework. And so this framework essentially talks in terms of center staging communities and helping to build this resilience of communities through collaborative and multi-stakeholder engagement, including the corporate sector and also spiritual and faith-based organizations. Next. So when we really look at the disaster resilient future ready communities, we have seen that the slides which were presented by Dr. Chawla actually has been providing this opportunity to really look at frameworks and the need to really build the disaster resilience of communities by generating similar frameworks and also making sure that we will need to really build on resilience of communities by platforms like the TIEMS, which is actually working in many countries through chapters. And so we would also offer the services of the International Emergency Management Society and request all those who are attending the program in person and also virtually to also become part of the process where they could also go through the international certification and also participate in conferences and training programs. Next slide. So we also have the final reinforcement and updation through transformation of knowledge, skills, and attitudes to build the capacities of all stakeholder groups. And finally, build on partnerships, because the partnership, which is the Sustainable Development Goal 17, SDG 17, in the Sustainable Development Goals is the most effective and most important critical sustainable development goal. And we hope that we will also build on partnerships. And the emotional intelligence, which was presented by Juliet a few minutes ago, is also necessary. We need to really build on that through in collaboration between institutions across countries to really make sure that there is experience sharing and also building the skills and capacities of communities which are actually facing disasters.
First of all, thank you very much for the opportunity to present my research in the annual conference organized by TIEMS International in South Africa this year. My name is Simona Cavallini. I'm a senior researcher of Progress Consulting, as well as the president of the TIEMS Italian chapter. My presentation will focus on digital resilience as a new challenge, an actual challenge of local and regional authorities. Okay, some elements related to the background to explain how we are linking digital resilience to emergency management. All the participants to this conference are very aware about the Sendai framework and on the step that the Sendai framework did in moving from the disaster risk management from disaster management. One of the key elements is in the priorities. One of the 4 priorities of the Sendai framework stress the fact that that is crucial, the investment in disaster risk reduction to achieve resilience. And in the document, there are some suggestions, some action that should be taken into account. And in particular, I would like to stress some elements. So first of all, the need of resources at any level of administration, the need to reduce the financial impact of disasters on governments as well as on societies. The importance to have measures to protect critical facilities and the relevance to take into account the economic, social, structural, and technological and environmental impacts. So the underlying assumption is the fact that reducing disaster risk is a cost-effective investment that helps to prevent future losses. For decades, there has been a debate on the trade-off between investing in prevention and preparedness to increase resilience in case of disruptive events, or when these events occur, bearing the cost for reaction and recovery. When we are asked to investigate digital resilience, we started from the experience that was achieved in the domain of natural disasters. And we were asked to focus on some elements. First of all, to understand digital resilience when we look at local and regional authorities. So we are talking about cities, we are talking about regions. And they are public administrations, and as public administration, they are providing essential services to the society. And we investigate this topic, taking into account the ongoing digital transformation of public administration that is occurring in Europe, and that is fostered in Europe also by a number of policies. And we look at local and regional authorities when they have to face some incidents. We call incidents any type of incidents. We are talking about cyber attacks, we are talking about floodings, about earthquakes. But we are focusing on incidents that are affecting the digital infrastructures of local and regional authorities. And we name this type of incidents as digital incidents. These incidents are incidents that are compromising, first of all, the authority functioning. So the municipality is blocked. And then the provision of public services to the society, but not only the digital services, something like booking some e-health checks, but also the traditional services. This is due to the fact that the increase in digital transformation in public administration is increasing the amount of data of citizens and business that are digitally stored. So sometimes when the digital incidents occurs, also traditional services that are provided at the office of public administration are unavailable. Why digital resilience for local and regional authorities? Simply because we were asked as Progress Consulting to do a research for the European Committee of the Regions that saw the raising of the importance of digital resilience in authorities that are also not only at national level. The study was published in April 2023 and is available with the link and on the European Publication Office. First of all, we have to face the definition of digital resilience of local and regional authorities. We found a lot of definition of resilience in any domain. We found a good number of definitions that relate the resilience to the digital domain, to the digital perspective, but nothing very specific for public administration. And our scope was more than public administration, was the public administration at subnational level. So we define digital resilience for local and regional authorities as their ability to resist, absorb, and recover from disruption caused by external digital threats or national disaster. And we identify three main components that are needed to guarantee the achievement of digital resilience. First of all, the enforcement of the existing legislation on cybersecurity and cyber resilience. Second, the availability of solid and reliable critical infrastructure intended as external critical infrastructure to the authority, and also critical infrastructure or infrastructure of the authority itself. And then last but not the least, the use of appropriate digital and cybersecurity skills. But when we have an authority that would like to improve its resilience to investments, we found that only two of these three components are those on which the authority can act. The first one is their own digital infrastructure. So we are talking about communication network, information assets, and so on, and their digital and cybersecurity skills. We call in our study these two components as the digital layer that of a public authority that is needed to guarantee, first of all, the authority in functioning, and then the provision of public services to the society. During our research, we did also, we launched a survey addressed to the local and regional authorities in Europe, asking for if they have some plans to invest in the next 2 years in digital resilience. Our survey was addressed to all the European local and regional authorities, and we received 64 contributions. The numbers is small, but if we take into account the potential population that would be served in a specific way with specific services by these authorities, we are talking about a 9.9% of the of the European population, EU27 population. And what we found is that 97% of these respondents are interested, they are willing to, and they have planned to invest in digital resilience. And what is interesting, they are focusing on two main aspects. The first one is digital infrastructure, equipment, and tools. So we can say the hard part of the digital layer. On the other side, they are focusing on securing and protecting the data that they store for citizens, for business, and for other reasons. What is less stressed is the importance of the skill part. So few of them are planning to invest in in-house specialist staff related to ICT, as well as to invest in obtaining outsourcing some ICT services. What is worrying probably is also the fact that the decision-making process when a digital incident occurs has neglected in terms of investments by local and regional authorities. When we investigated and we defined the idea of digital resilience for cities, for regions, we have also to face the other side of the coin. So we saw that we anticipated that in case of a digital incident, you have two choices. The local authority has two choices. They can invest, spend money today to become resilient and avoid the cost of recovery when an incident occurs, or they can sit down, wait, finger crossed, and then spend money for recovery and restore the situation. So we have also, we start also to investigate what is the cost of not being digital resilience in case of public authority. And we define the cost of digital or resilience for a public authority as the actual or estimated monetary cost that an authority affected by a digital incident sustain the effort to restore its functioning and the provision of services to at least the level, to a level at least equal to the one existing before the incidents. We found some evidence when we we investigated through the survey, interviews, this research, the cost of non-digital resilience. Usually the decision of a public authority to invest in digital resilience is negatively influenced by the lack of information about the cost that the digital incident with a significant disruptive effect can cause. Another point is related to the fact that there is some uncertainty concerning the level of digital resilience that should be achieved, as well as the level of expenses that is needed to maintain this level of resilience over time. Third element is the perception that the likelihood of experiencing the digital incident with a significant disruptive effect is extremely low. And another point that is underestimated is the fact that we should consider not only the cost of the incident that is affecting the digital infrastructure of the authority, but also the costs that are suffering the citizen and the business that are suffering the unavailability of some of the services of the affected authority. And more, there are some entities that are directly dependent from the services of the local and regional authorities that can be blocked, and again have indirect effect, indirect cost on citizens and businesses. So when local and regional and authorities at some national level decide to not invest in digital resilience should be aware that there is a cost, a societal cost, not only a direct cost for the authority itself, that is the responsibility of the authority. The reality tells us that the natural disasters are increasing in number and intensity. This is a citation of the Sendai framework, but the events occurred a few days ago in Morocco and Libya demonstrated that that is increasing this tendency of number and intensity of natural disasters. As well as there are a lot of studies in Europe provided by the NIESA with the threat landscape in 2021 and 2022 that demonstrate that public authorities, especially local and regional authorities, have become a privileged target of cyber attacks. So the conclusion is that if not investing in digital resilience, any local and regional authority, not only in Europe, wherever the sites, should be prepared to bear the recovery cost of digital incidents. What we found is also that in examples of cyber attacks, it's common that the local and regional authorities that suffered these incidents after bearing the cost of their non-digital resilience, so their choice on not investing, they start investing immediately after the digital incident to avoid suffering again the same impacts. When we asked to our respondents which kind of types of action are taken after a cyber attack, we have 76% of the respondents that declare to have suffered an important cyber attack starting from 2020. This authority focus on immediately after a cyber attack, focusing on, again, upgrading the digital infrastructure, equipment and tools, again, securing and protecting data. What is again importance is the decision-making process that was a little bit neglected in the ex-ante investment of local and regional authorities, especially from those not suffering the incidents. And again, probably not so much still done on the skill parts of the digital layer. Some focus on the part that we investigated more in our study that is related not to natural disaster but to cyber attacks. Why? This choice was done to because we are very interested to understand the cost that is implied in this kind of incidents. And cyber attacks are malicious actions that often are targeted, affecting individual entities, and this makes possible to better identify the damage suffered by the authority and the related direct costs of digital incidents. Nevertheless, understanding the cost of digital incidents due to cyber attacks is complex, first of all, because not often the damages and what is suffered by the authorities is publicly declared. And then because the cost is composed by a number of impacts that could be suffered by the authority. In our study, we customized, let me say, what was done by ENISA in 2022, and we identified 5 types of impacts in terms of digital incidents that are suffered by local and regional authorities, and we identified in detail which are the effects in terms of economic impacts, digital impacts, social, reputational, and physical impacts. I would like not to enter in detail of these 2 examples. You will find in the study other examples, other case studies of how regional local and regional authorities are investing and achieving digital resilience. But these 2 are 2 key elements that prove us that cyber attacks, especially when we are talking about ransomware, can affect any type of city. We have the example of a town in Florida, as well as a huge municipality in Greece. They were attacked. They suffered different types of impact. One especially has blocked most of its services, including water utilities, communication services of the city, the emergency call system. Both of them were asked to pay a ransom. There is a very interesting topic to be investigated more, in my opinion, that is related to the insurance and that is bearing part of the cost, and the signal that some municipalities or regions are insured, and in this case sometimes became more and more attacked by hackers because they know they are willing to pay, because they are not directly paying, but the insurance is going to pay. But in any case, we can see that there are a lot of cost for the municipality, direct and indirect, also in restoring their IT infrastructure, digital infrastructure, as well as in some cases, in case especially of data breaches, in which in Europe we have a tight regulation about protection of privacy and data protection. We saw also some reputational damages in terms of the municipalities that suffered these attacks. How to solve the situation? In our research, we came out at the end with some recommendations. These recommendations are structured through a path towards a reasonable level of digital resilience for European local and regional authorities. We identify a recommendation that involves different types of stakeholders, starting from the territorial actors, the stakeholders at local level, to the European Commission. And for instance, we identify 5 recommendations in step 1 that in our opinion is the political awareness to go for digital resilience. That is followed by a definition of a governance models for digital resilience. We identified 5 governance models that can be adopted by authorities at subnational level according to their dimension, according to their digital maturity, to manage the situation of digital incidents, but to become digital resilience over time. The third step, in our opinion, is the choice of investment strategy and identification on funding sources for digital resilience. In our survey, we found that the lack of money is one of the main reasons for.
Simona, if you can wrap up, you have a minute left.
Yes. Yeah. The lack of money is the main reason for not achieving digital resilience. Last but not the least, the fourth step is the creation of links with the surrounding environment, because digital aspects are so are pervading our societies. So we believe that digital resilience should be one of the components of the territorial resilience and of the community resilience. I would like to thank you very much for the opportunity to present my research and for your attention.
Once again, good afternoon, good evening, good morning, everyone. So it's always pretty hard to be the final speaker of the session just before the lunch, but I will try to be short, as clear as I can. So today I want to shed light on the critical aspects of NATO mission, resilience among the member countries. In an ever-changing world filled with uncertainties, NATO recognized the significance of preparedness and also the ability to recover from major shocks. Resilience in the context of NATO refers to a society's capability to withstand and rebound from unforeseen crises, being natural disasters, critical infrastructure failures, or hybrid and armed attack. It is an amalgamation of civil preparedness and military capacity, serving as a bedrock of our alliance strength. At the heart of the research of our research lies the concept of resilience. It is term often used but not always fully understood, resilience is the ability of the society to withstand and recover from major shocks, as I mentioned. These shocks can take various forms, from natural disasters to failure of critical infrastructure, etc., etc., as I mentioned also. NATO, as an alliance committed to collective defense, place great emphasis on ensuring that each member country possesses the necessary resilience to endure and bounce back from such adversities. Why, you may ask me? And the answer is simple. A resilient nation is a strong nation, and a strong nation contributes to the overall robustness of our alliance. Now, let's delve into NATO's baseline requirements, which serves as a pillar for member countries' resilience, and also the third one is our current research. Firstly, we have the assurance of continuity of government and critical government services. In times of crisis, our governments must continue to function effectively and provide essential services to our citizens. Secondly, resilient energy supplies are critical also for both civilians and military functions. Without a stable energy supply, our nation's ability to function efficiency is compromised. The third requirement is, and also our focus, is the ability to deal effectively with the uncontrolled movement of people, which is a pretty hard and pretty important topic these days. Border security and immigration control become paramount during crisis to safeguard our nation's security and stability also. Moving on the fourth requirement, we must ensure resilient food and water resources. A nation that can feed hydrate its population during crisis is better equipped to withstand challenges. The fifth requirements address the ability to deal with mass casualties and disruptive health crisis. Healthcare and crisis response capabilities are essential for saving lives and maintaining social order. Resilient civil communication system are our sixth requirement. Effective communication is the lifeblood of crisis management, ensuring coordination and information dissemination. Finally, we have resilient civil transport system as our seventh requirement. These systems are vital for mobility during crisis, enabling the movement of essential goods and services. I would like to discuss a topic of increasing importance and complexity in our rapidly changing world: the management of people's movements in the era characterized by global interconnectedness, social upheaval, and unforeseen crisis. Understanding and addressing this complexity has never been more critical. Managing people's movement is a multifaceted challenge that demands our attention for several compelling reasons. Mass movement of people have been a recurring feature for human history. They are not isolated incidents, but rather an intrinsic part of the human experience. These movements can be driven by a variety of factors, from natural disaster to political conflicts, and can have a profound impact on society, regions, and even entire nation. These movements can be triggered by an array of significant events, ranging from natural disasters like earthquakes and flooding to human-made crises such as armed conflict and economic downturns. Each trigger comes with its own set of challenges, making it essential to understand the intricacies of each situation. Managing the movement of large masses of people is a immensely complex task. Whether it's responding to refugees fleeing conflict zones or aiding communities affected by natural disaster, the sheer scale of these events presents logically humanitarian and infrastructural challenges that demand innovative solutions. One of the unique complexities in managing people's movement is the potential for these movements to shift the crisis from one location to another. When populations are displaced, they don't simply disappear. They often move elsewhere, introducing new dynamics and challenges to their host regions. Mass movements can generate secondary consequences and impacts that ripple through societies and regions. This can include strains on resources, social tensions, and even changes in demographics. It's critical to anticipate and mitigate this second-order effect effectively. Perhaps one of the most critical aspects of managing people's movement is understanding the role of societal resilience. A society's ability to withstand and recover from shocks such as mass movements intertwined with its capacity to protect its citizens, maintain social cohesion, and ensure the availability of essential services. A holistic approach to managing people's movement must consider societal resilience as a means of preventing negative impacts on both the host country and the people affected by the movement. Ensuring that society can weather these changes without disruption is a fundamental aspect of crisis management. Societal resilience and flow management are two interconnected concepts that have significant implications for the well-being of individuals, communities, and nations. The correlation between resilience and mass movement management is undeniable and multi-faced. It touches upon capacity building, social cohesion, humanitarian response, political will, economic stability, and conflict prevention. To address the complex challenges of our world, we must recognize that these elements are interconnected. Strengthening resilience at the individual, community, and national level is not only a means of preventing mass movements, but also a pathway to a more stable, secure, and compassionate world. It is often necessary to model a process to better understand how it works, identify potential problems or inefficiencies, and develop strategies for improving it. Some of the reasons why process modeling can be valuable are in front of you. To improve efficiency, by modeling a process, we can identify bottlenecks, redundancies, and other inefficiencies that may be slowing down the process or reducing its effectiveness. This information can be used to optimize the process and improve its overall efficiency. To predict outcomes, very important. Process modeling can help us predict how changes to the process will impact its outcomes. For example, we use a model to estimate how changing certain inputs will affect the output, or how adding additional resources will impact the time it takes to complete the process, for example. To identify the risks, modeling a process can help us identify potential risks and areas where errors or mistakes are more likely to occur. This can help us develop strategies to mitigate this risk and improve the quality of safety of the process. Sorry. To exchange ideas, a process model can be used to communicate ideas and strategies to stakeholders clearly and consciously. A visual model, for example, can help stakeholders understand the process and its potential challenges and benefits, which can lead to better decision making and more effective implementation. To evaluate alternatives, modeling a process can help us evaluate different alternatives and trade-offs. By creating models of different scenarios, we can compare the pros and cons of different options and make more informed decisions about which approach to take. Overall, process modeling is a valuable tool for improving efficiency, predicting outcomes, identify risk, communicating ideas, and evaluate alternatives. By understanding how a process works and how it can be improved, we can make better decisions and achieve better outcomes. For our research, which is already finished, we placed this framework that I'm speaking about today, and now we are in a process of technical implementation of these ideas. For this implementation, we use, let's say, thousands of parameters, and a couple of them are depicted on the slide. It is very different to make this research. We was not sure what approach to use, how to in the very beginning, how to achieve our goals, how to model, how to create this, and after that, how to simulate, and and also what kind of modeling to use, which is another very important thing. Is it important to use classic modeling or the new technologies, this new approach with artificial intelligence, with algorithms, with processing data, etc., etc. But finally, we are now starting working on the technical implementation of this idea, and we choose mixed approaches according to a different level of implementation. We will use different approaches, and as I mentioned, this is only a few parameters that we are looking for achieving our goals. People mass movement management is an important issue for the military, especially in conflict zones. Military forces may be involved in providing assistance to refugees and managing their safe passage to areas where they can receive aid and protection. Effective management of the people mass movement can help prevent the spread of disease, alleviate suffering, and reduce the risk of violence or conflict. In addition, managing of people mass movement can help mitigate the security risk associated with displaced populations. When people are forced to flee their homes due to conflict or other crises, they often become vulnerable to exploitation or radicalization. Effective management can help prevent the spread of extremism and maintain stability in affected regions. At all, building resilience and managing people mass movement are critical aspects of military operations and pretty important for NATO, and can help ensure the safety and well-being of military personnel and the civilian population they serve. People mass movement flows are to be understood as a key factor affecting military activities and therefore should be accounted for at all stages for the planning and execution of operations. In conclusion, the advantages of the approach that we chose emphasize objectivity, precision, automated measurement, speed, and general applicability are undeniable. This approach ensures that our calculations and analysis are rooted in objective reality, leading to more reliable and trustworthy results. As we continue to harness the power of technology and artificial intelligence, we open door to unprecedented opportunities for innovation, efficiency, and progress in every field that relies on data-driven decision-making. About our counts, I mentioned a little bit about them. We plan to build a mathematical model of mass movement of people using organized and categorized information data. Building an algorithm for automatical data collection to feed this model, and development of management logic.
Just you have 2 minutes left.
Okay, thank you. Development of an application using artificial intelligence that computes the model result and simulate mass movements of people, an interface that connects this engine to command and control system, and manipulate the model parameters, applying management measures in a virtual or live environment. Okay. Thank you very much.
My presentation is focused on some sort of an anticipatory disaster risk management, where I'm looking at the assessment of public awareness on the installation of a hazardous material. And in this case, it's petrol storage facility in an industrial site in Lesotho. Sorry. Now, we know hazardous materials pose serious threats to human life, the environment, their livelihood, and so forth. And the production, the transportation, and the storage of this hazardous material, for example, I've listed a couple of them there, needs serious disaster planning, it needs serious prevention, it needs serious awareness. We can think of things like chemical spills, gas explosion, air pollution, land pollution, and so forth. And such incidences occur almost everywhere in the world. I just brought what happened in Beirut in 2020, where we lost almost 220 people as a result of an explosion in the storage facility near the coast. So in this particular aspect, we're looking at the storage of petroleum in the industrial area in Maseru. Although no major disaster has really occurred there, but an explosion in 2014 was a warning for us to start thinking. And that is why this study, we undertook this study. Now, looking at the study area, we're looking at, for those who are not from South Africa, looking at a small country which is completely surrounded by South Africa, almost like the Vatican in Rome, with 30,355 kilometers square of surface area, and just closely above 2 million inhabitants. It's divided into 10 administrative districts and 4 ecological zones. Most of the area is mountainous. And Lesotho is well known in Southern Africa as the water tower of South Africa, because about 40% of the Senku Orange Basin that feeds most of our metropolitan, for example, Johannesburg, come from this area. And that is why it's always referred to as the liquid gold or the white gold of Lesotho in terms of revenue that is generated. Specifically, Rhodes District, where this study concentrates, has about 519,000 people, inhabitants living there, mix of so many activities, commercial, industrial, service provision, the headquarters of the whole country. We always refer to Lesotho as the one city state. And the one city here is the Maseru, and that is where we are looking at this. Coupled with rapid urbanization and poor land planning, this area poses quite a serious threat to humankind as well as their livelihoods. This is the study area that we looked at. This is the industrial area. And we ring-fence 500 meters to see exactly what is happening within this. Now, the diagram on my left is showing you the Lesotho, which is completely surrounded by South Africa, and the 4 ecological zones are coming from the mountain areas, which form the majority. That is the one in almost pink or whatever, yeah, which is where I'm pointing. The lowland area is in yellow, and then the Senku River is down there and the foothill. Now, the problem here is that Lesotho imports a lot, like South Africa imports a lot of chemicals from other areas. Specifically, petrol is imported into Lesotho, and this constitutes about 36% of what is being brought into the country in terms of gas, petroleum, and all the like. Now, the industrial area in Lesotho stores about 700 gallons of petrol. If you multiply it, this is equivalent of about close to, if you multiply by 3.5, it gives you so many, about 2,000, 3,000 liters of petrol is stored in this area. And this particular area is surrounded by so many economic activities: textile industry, mortuary, car fixing, offices, flour mills. Within this 500 ring circumference, it tells us that a lot of activities are taking place in this particular area. And what we wanted to see was, are these people who are surrounding this particular area aware of the danger that this particular petrol station can pose? Like I said, in 2014, there was one explosion in this particular area. The most affected factory there was the Dragon Park factory, which lost a lot of manufactured goods, and most of them were plastic. And then it was also closed down. But this is just a ticking bomb for us to look at carefully in terms of our land zoning and planning. Rapid urbanization is also taking place, and the poor land use planning is also evident there, where you find a juxtaposition of so many activities that may pose, that the petrol station pose a serious threat. So we wanted to find out if the stakeholders, if others which are living within the 500 radius and even beyond are aware of this particular threat, or even the management of the petrol station have put in place some corrective measures. This study we followed the onion ring type of approach to look at the story, and it was pragmatism that we used as a philosophy, where we distributed 73 questionnaires within the 104 identified plots within the 500 radius. We also interviewed the management of the petrol station, although there was some hesitancy on responding to some of the questions we asked, but at least we went through. With the findings, we found out that most of the people who are in this particular area were male active population, but also we had a lot of people who were elderly people, about 3% of them, and also a lot of women. And this was a pointer that, hey, this is an area where we have some sort of a segment of population which is quite vulnerable, and therefore we need careful planning. The majority were also general workers who were in that particular area, and about 85% of those businesses there employ between 1 and 10 people. This also showed us that is an indicator of quite a vulnerable area. Although 57% of the respondents had experience, or they know exactly, had no experience, any disaster in the area, at least 68% of them acknowledged that there was serious threat to them, to their livelihood, to their lives as a result of that petrol station, either in terms of fire coming out or explosion or mechanical failure. 85% of the respondents were very, very sure that there is in the event of any event or anything happening with the petrol station, actually they are going to be affected. And 95% of them actually looking at the risk that was posed, they indicated that I think they thought it was a good move to move the petrol station from that particular location to a far distance out of at the outskirts of that particular industrial area. The people were aware of the risks that is facing them, but the individual companies that we interviewed in that area had no contingency plan in place, no preparedness plan in place, even though they had copies of the labor code that were distributed by the government. And then the majority of the respondents also did not know anything about land zoning, although there is a law that is really enforceable to see which particular activity should be located in which area in Lesotho. Looking at what we gathered here was that it's evident that the importation of petrol will not stop now in Lesotho. And given that preparedness plan and other plans are not in place, we find this as a ticking bomb. It's just a matter of time. If something happens, then we'll start running helter-skelter. There are also many land uses around the area, including government offices, which actually are in danger in case anything happens like fire or explosion or leak or even structural collapse, they will be affected. And though the Land Use Act is in place, enforcement is actually lacking. And therefore, we found a lot of unplanned urbanization around this installation of the hazardous material. And if we look at the changing climate with the structural integrity of this particular storage facility, especially the tanks, which has not been done, then we are sitting at an extra hazard which may come up anytime. So when we looked at it, we then made certain recommendations as to what may be possible to make sure that we mitigate or maybe somehow prevent any likelihood of a disaster happening here. One is that we need to relocate the petrol storage facility further in the outskirts of the city. And the question will come, but with rapid urbanization, what is going to happen? Definitely, urbanization will meet them there, but with good enforcement of the laws in place, this can be reduced. We also need plan for potential hazard preparedness plan, including awareness, early warning of anything that may happen. And of course, the people should be educated for early action. And we need to put in place health and safety officers in those business premises as prescribed by the Occupational Health and Safety Act of 1992. And lastly, for the proper enforcement of the land zoning in Lesotho as legislated in the Town and Country Planning Act of 1980. With the time given, this is a summary of what we did in this particular study. And thank you for your attention.